I'll now call this meeting of the Senate Judiciary Committee to order. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And I will turn it over to the Secretary to please call the roll.
Senator Flores?
Present.
Senator Orenshaw?
Here.
Senator Lang? Senator Wynn? Senator Hansen?
Here.
Senator Krasner? Senator Ellison? Chair Scheibel?
Here. And please mark Senator Wynn present when she arrives. We do have a quorum, and today we have two more presentations that I hope will be helpful to our committee members and those of you who join us almost every day for our committee to understand some more of the government agencies that we work with frequently on the Judiciary Committee. So we will start with the Cannabis Compliance Board. They're going to come down here and tell us a little bit about their structure and what they do. And as a reminder to our presenters, please do give your name and the spelling on the record when you begin. And then as we go forward, if you can just repeat your name every time you speak, that will help us to keep a cleaner record. And go ahead whenever you're ready.
Are we ready, Chair? Okay. Chair, are we ready?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I'm James Humm, James-Humm, Executive Director of the Cannabis Compliance Board. Joining me today is Deputy Director Mike Miles, who's to my right. I also brought our executive team, our Chief of Administration, Steve Gilbert, our Chief of Health and Safety, Kara Cronkite, and our Chief of Investigations, Dave Staley, should we need any assistance with questions. Just want the committee to know that whatever measure of success I will have in this appointment will be because of them and their incredible teams who serve the state with dedication and unrivaled efficiency. Some quick background on myself and the agency. Governor Lombardo named me to lead the CCB in December of 2023, whereas in the prior 6 years I had the pleasure of serving the state in various roles at both the Attorney General's Office and the Governor's Office of Economic Development. During my 14 months at the agency, we have already, and I know we will continue, to accomplish many more great things. Now, if you will, please let me walk you through the presentation. Timeline of the Nevada's cannabis program. The Cannabis Compliance Board was established through Assembly Bill 533 and consists of 5 board members appointed by the governor. AB 533 also created the 12-person Cannabis Advisory Commission to study cannabis-related topics and make recommendations to the CCB. In 2000, Nevadans voted to legalize medical use. In 2015, the first medical marijuana establishment opened. In 2016, voters approved ballot question 2, which legalized adult use, which many of you may know as recreational use. In 2017, recreational sales began in Nevada, and the state's cannabis program transitioned from the Division of Public and Behavioral Health to the Department of Taxation. In 2019, Governor Sisolak signed AB 533, creating the Nevada Cannabis Compliance Board, which many of you may know was modeled after the Nevada's Gaming Control Board. In 2020, the state's cannabis program transitioned from the Department of Tax to the CCB. Our mission statement. Nevada Cannabis Compliance Board governs Nevada's cannabis industry through strict regulation of all areas of its licensing and operations, protecting the public health and safety of our citizens and visitors while holding cannabis licensees to the highest ethical standards. CCB's board duties and responsibilities. As noted before, CCB consists of 5 board members appointed by the governor. The board holds regular public board meetings, hosts ad hoc regulatory workshops, reviews and approves final licensures, transfers of interest, management services agreements, and the like. They also approve the service of disciplinary actions, such as complaints, and act as the final arbiter of discipline and have final approval regarding subsequent settlement agreements. Additionally, they may hold emergency board meetings to consider urgent matters, such as summary suspensions. The CAC, as noted before, is tasked with studying issues related to the cannabis industry and making policy and regulatory recommendations to the CCB. The 12-member commission is chaired by myself, the CCB's executive director. It includes 8 representatives appointed by the governor with expertise related to the cannabis industry. It also includes the Nevada Attorney General, the Director of the Department of Public Safety, and the Executive Director of the Department of Taxation. Currently, we have 3 subcommittees, one on rescheduling and descheduling, one on market participation, and one on public safety and the illicit market. The CAC, as well as the subcommittees, meet at the direction of myself, similar to the Nevada Gaming Policy Committee. Now, who are we? What do we do? We have 3 main divisions: licensing division, our inspection and audit division, which also covers health and safety, and our investigations and enforcement division. The licensing division processes and reviews licenses and renewal applications, as well as collecting the fees associated with those. It manages the Cannabis Agent Registration Card Program. Currently, we have 20,000 plus active cards, as well as 14,500 plus individuals. They also assist the Department of Taxation in collecting cannabis-related taxes from licensees. Our inspection and audit division performs audits and inspections of the cannabis facilities. It tracks and monitors all inventory from seed to sale and audits monthly and quarterly reports from licensees that are required by the CCB. Inspection and audit also evaluates all complaints made against a licensed facility, including incident reports. The Investigations and Enforcement Division reviews and processes transfers of interest for change of ownership requests. They vet potential licensees and affiliated owners and board members, which include a full suite of background checks and financial analyses as part of a required suitability review. Lastly, they also partner with local and state law enforcement regarding criminal investigations, including enforcement on illicit market activities. Types of facilities, we have 6 different license types. Cultivators, they obviously grow the product, and they're able to sell cannabis to cannabis establishments, but not to consumers. Production licenses manufacture, process, and package cannabis and cannabis products, and they sell to other cannabis establishments, but not to consumers. Our retail dispensary locations are licensees. Those are our dispensaries, and they can sell to consumers after purchasing the products from other cannabis establishments. We also have a testing lab license, and the labs are required to test the products. A distribution license, as you would imagine, they're able to transport cannabis from one cannabis establishment to another. Finally, the newest type of license is the consumption lounge license, and they are licensed to operate businesses for the consumption of single-use or ready-to-consume cannabis products on site. Next, taxable sales, excise tax, and state retail cannabis excise tax. As you can see in the gray, taxable sales reported by adult use retail stores and medical dispensaries in fiscal year 24 were $829,225,193. That is a decrease of 2% compared to fiscal year 2023. Additionally, $43.7 million were collected for the 15% excise tax in fiscal year 2024, and $76.8 million were collected for the 10% state retail tax in fiscal year 2024. As with any industry, the market determines and dictates demand. As I think I've mentioned before, my goal is to provide certainty and a fair playing field for the industry to know what's expected of them and to provide stability to withstand these sort of economic downturns. Next, distribution to state education fund. The total distribution to the state education fund for fiscal year 24 was $107.8 million. As noted on the slide before, the excise tax provided excise retail tax provided $76.8 million, and the wholesale excise tax provided $31 million. NRS 372A 290 directs all revenue from the 10% state retail cannabis excise tax into the state education fund, which some of you may know was formerly the distributive school account. The state wholesale cannabis excise tax revenue collected is transferred to the CCB and used to support the agency's operation and the regulatory oversight of the cannabis industry here in Nevada. CCB also distributes a total of $5 million of that revenue from wholesale excise tax to local governments to carry out the provisions of NRS 678 C and D, and the remaining proceeds are transferred to the state education fund by the CCB, along with residuals from civil penalties, licensing, and other fees collected as outlined in statute. Nevada Department of Education, once received, is responsible for the distribution from the state education fund to the school districts. Industry snapshot. So what does the cannabis industry look like? So currently we have 387 total licensees. As you would imagine, the highest concentration of those operational licenses is in Southern Nevada, which is 260 operational in Clark, unincorporated Clark, Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, Henderson, and Mesquite. 62 operational licenses in Washoe County, which is unincorporated Washoe, Reno, and Sparks. Breakdown of the license types of the 6 we mentioned prior: 128 cultivators, 100 producers, 8 independent testing laboratories, 103 medical dispensaries or retail cannabis stores, 46 distribution facilities, and 2 cannabis consumption lounges. Additionally, on the industry snapshot, as mentioned before in our licensing department, pursuant to NRS 678B, 390, and 340, cost of an agent card is currently $150 per category, and each card is valid for 2 years. Each category, cultivation, production, distribution, dispensary, lab, and consumption lounge, requires separate cards at $150 each. CCB receives an average of 1,012 agent card applications monthly, and we issue an average of 902 temporary agent cards each month, allowing Nevadans to enter or continue work in the cannabis industry. Pending a state and FBI background check, an applicant can expect to receive a temporary agent card within 48 hours, which we're very proud of, as we like to be able to keep people working or add people to the industry. All of our rules and regulations can be found on the CCB's website, so if you want some additional information, it can all be found there under the Laws and Regulations tab. This page includes Title 56, NRS 678A through D, as well as the Nevada Cannabis Compliance Regulations. The NCCRs are soon to be NACs, and those are all broken down by regulation type currently. Current and trending challenges. Economics of the industry. As mentioned before, tax revenue in fiscal year 2024 is down compared to both fiscal year 23 and 22, as a derivative of sales revenue being down in 2023 and 2022. That decline is consistent with sales trends in other states with mature cannabis markets and can be attributed in part to the after effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. The illicit market, as I know many of you have heard, and I've had a conversation with a few of you, that has become an issue in Nevada, and illicit market includes unregulated cultivation, production, and the sale of cannabis, and then also illicit market nationwide concerns regarding synthetic cannabis. Cannabis market study contracted by the CCB estimates the illicit market size at $242 million, or about 21% of the total cannabis market in Nevada. You may have heard of intoxicating hemp, synthetics, or Delta-8 THC. National concern is growing over these products, which are often sold in smoke shops and gas stations, and these are not regulated by us at the CCB, and these products are classified as over the allowable legal limit for hemp. Agency operations and efficiency. So during my 14 months at the agency, we've done 1 licensing round for White Pine County, which includes 1 cultivation and 1 production license that have been issued. We're very proud of that, as it's the 2nd licensing round in agency history for those types of licenses. Cannabis consumption lounges have opened. We've opened 2, as I've mentioned before. Cannabis consumption lounges are expected to open on a rolling basis. CCB also purchased a mobile lab, which in 2024, we enlisted this mobile lab to test edibles, plants, concentrates, and infused products in the field. Results take about 15 minutes. It's a wonderful piece of technology, and light labs have already been used to assist law enforcement across the state. As mentioned before, we released a market study. We can commission that independent market study as required by NRS 678A.310. Agency operations and efficiency, governor's initiatives, economic growth, so trying to create a business-friendly regulatory environment. Public safety, partnering with DPS on illicit market concerns. Government support services, recruiting and retention of a talented team. Providing outstanding service, collaborating with other state agencies, including tax, DPS, and Department of Ag. Office organization, the new supervisory positions approved by the legislature in 2023 in the Audit, Inspection, and Investigations Division improve efficiencies within their divisions. Staff training and improvement. In the interim, the CCB team received numerous trainings and utilized resources inside and outside the agency, leveraged trainings from other state agencies, and provided numerous trainings to licensees and industry stakeholders. Recruiting and retention. CCB is a desirable place to work. We like to create an innovative and forward-looking agency, and we currently have a vacancy rate of 1%, which we're very proud of. Audit and inspection, also happy to report our teams completed all of their field work and 100% of licensees were visited in 2024. Regulatory updates, the board, as dictated by the governor's executive order, considered multiple regulation changes which were workshopped and approved in June of 2024. Bill implementations from the 2023 session, SB 195, which covered disciplinary action, revamped the provisions relating to disciplinary action taken by the board, including the settlement process for any complaints, and it limited civil penalties to a max of $20,000 for any single violation. Fees and costs eliminated time and effort billing for audit and inspection. SB 328, as noted before, put us into the APA. The CCB is no longer exempt from the Administrative Procedures Act. LCB is currently revising the Nevada Cannabis Compliance regulations into the new NAC format, as well as all regulatory changes that we submitted after our workshops in June of 2024. Board composition, this covered the composition of the board, the terms of office, qualifications, training of the board members, and executive director appointment. The CCB also welcomed 2 new members, one in January of 2024, with another new member starting this month. His first board meeting will be February 20th of this month. And we're happy to say, based on the training requirements, that new member received his training this week. Additionally, SB 277 called for a study on federal rescheduling and descheduling, required the CAC to provide a study and recommendations concerning the potential effects on the Nevada cannabis industry if cannabis were to be removed from Schedule 1 of the UCC Act or the Federal Controlled Substance Act. We submitted that on February 29th, 2024. Also required dual licensing. The CCB combined licenses for both medical and adult use, creating one fee for license renewal. Subsequently, over the last year, all licenses have now been combined. Individual sale amount increases. Notices were sent to industry and adjustments made to the tracking and inventory systems after the adjustment was made to increase sale amounts. Excluded felonies. It required the board to develop and implement a process by which a person who's been convicted of an excluded felony offense may submit to the board a petition for an exemption from those prohibitions. 9 have been submitted in total. 4 were approved without conditions. 3 were approved with conditions. 1 did not respond after the submittal, and 1 has not brought the requested documentations back forward to the board. So the process is working. We're able to help those people get into the industry. Issuance and renewal fees. This decreases the maximum amount of the fees the CCB is authorized to charge for the issuance or renewal of an adult use cannabis establishment. And secure entrances authorizes any cannabis establishment to have more than 1 entrance so long as each entrance is secure. And in closing, our legislative initiatives for this session include AB 76, which obviously revises provisions relating to cannabis, amends statutory languages to dovetail with the requirements of the APA, clarifies the requirements of ID scanning at cannabis sales facilities and the definition of synthetic cannabinoid, adds language to allow for immediate temporary cease of operations due to imminent health hazards, consistent with other agencies that deal with public health, revises package size limits to be consistent with new possession limits and industry demands, as well as a few other things. And I must say that we've been working closely with industry and other key stakeholders, so when we get that bill hearing, which we anticipate next week, we will be bringing forward a substantive amendment as we've been working together with them. So with that, Chair, that concludes my prepared remarks.
Thank you so much. We really do appreciate this overview, and I think we have some questions from members of the committee. Senator Ellison, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I do have a question. I've had several calls from a grower out of Ely, Nevada. They've received their certificate. Everything was approved, but yet to this date, they still don't have their license. Can you tell me what the holdup is? They've invested several millions of dollars into this project.
Thank you for the question, Senator. If you could provide me a little additional information on the exact specific license. Is that White Pine?
Yes.
Is that True
Yeah.
Harmony, Senator?
Well,
Jameson for
I've
that.
been dealing through Donna Bass down in Ely, and she'd been talking to Senator Gogachia. So we're trying to figure out where we're at on this project. And then when you get done before you leave, I hate to take up time, but I need to get one of your business cards, your phone number. I got a call from a police officer last night, so I've got an issue there, and maybe you could lead me in the right direction.
Excellent.
Okay. But I think Donna Bass, I know, has been working on this for a long time, and I don't know what they're going to do, because millions and millions of dollars have been put into this project.
Excellent. Thank you for the question, Senator. James Hum, for the record. We've actually been working very closely with Ms. Bath as well as Bob Kurlko out in White Pine County to work on their opening. We've done a couple recent inspections. We've done one on-site as well as a couple via Teams, and they are very close to being licensed. I believe, are they pass conditional?
I don't think that.
You guys, you don't have to put on the record the
Oh.
specifics of any particular business's application process. This is Chair Scheibel on the record now. I appreciate that you work closely with applicants and that we have legislators who are also advocating on behalf of their constituents, and would encourage you guys to follow up after the meeting to work through whatever those specific issues might be.
Thank you, Chair. James Hum, for the record, I will just say we're on it, Senator.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah. And if you don't have any further questions, I'll go to Senator Lang next.
Great, thank you. Okay, so this is all kind of new to me, but so I might ask questions that you've said because it was a pretty lengthy and in-depth presentation. But I want to just ask a question. Last session, we had a problem with overcharging of different facilities. They'd get bills for enormous amounts of money. I just wanted to know if that's been fixed.
Thank you for the question, Senator. James Hum, for the record. Happy to report that has been fixed. SB 195 eliminated all fees and costs associated with audit and inspection.
Great, thank you. Okay, so moving on. Oh, may I ask a few more? Okay. Moving on to your committees and the committee members. Did you mention the makeup of those? You did as far as the governor appoints this and that. Could you tell me how many minorities you have, women, men?
Chair, my apologies. May I go direct?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Chair. Senator, I do not have that information in front of me, but I'm happy to provide it for you.
If you do that, I'd really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And then you talked about illicit distributors. I think you said 242 million is 21%. Who regulates the smoke shops to make sure that we don't have illicit drugs in the smoke shops?
Thank you for the question, Senator James Hum, for the record. Currently, that comes through the licensing division at the local levels, but I'm happy to report Chief Staley, who's over investigations and enforcement, has been working with the local entities to go out and make site visits at some of those locations to make sure that any of the products aren't over the legal limit that's considered hemp. We're doing what we can, but of course, we still need to do more.
And I'm just wondering, because I know this is a huge problem, what can we do to fix this? That's a big question.
Excellent question, Senator. I don't know if we have all day, but what I can tell you is, again, through Chief Staley, we have been doing that for the illegal products that are coming into the state. He's really ramped up the division, and we're issuing cease and desist letters to those products that are illegal and being sold over the internet and mailed into the state. Additionally, been working very closely with Director Tagliotti at the Department of Public Safety. He's coming with a budget ask this session for a couple members to start an illicit market task force. We've held numerous illicit market roundtables with members and stakeholders of the industry, recognizing that this is a problem, and we're very eager to start working on this and continuing the conversation and working with Director Tagliotti over at DPS.
It's great. Are you doing any kind of media campaign or?
Also an excellent question. I love all these questions. In our market study, which is rather long, so you probably have not read it, but that was one of the recommendations that came out where we've had discussions with the Nevada Cannabis Association to look into those, PSAs and things like that, to do a campaign towards saying buy legal, make sure it's safe. Again, as mentioned in our mission statement, one of the very important things is the public health and safety of Nevadans, as well as the tourists and those that come visit us. So that's definitely something we have an eye towards. And we have a small budget now, but again, we're looking to partner with industry and potentially ramp up those efforts.
Great, thanks so much.
Thanks, Senator.
I think next we have Senator Hansen.
Thanks, Madam Chair. In Humboldt County, in northern Humboldt County, McDermott Indian Reservation, I have no idea. Do you have any jurisdiction over Indian reservations? Because they had a really terrible situation where tribe ended up losing millions of dollars. Some guy came in and was gonna build greenhouses and all that, and turns out I think he was just a shyster and took advantage of them. But I don't know, do you have any jurisdiction over an Indian reservation, or can you help the Indians in any way up there?
Thank you for the question, Senator James Humm. For the record, we actually don't have jurisdiction over the tribes. However, we do have tribal compacts, so we can work with them on some things. So if you want to pass along that information, we can certainly converse with them and see if there's anything we can help them with.
Good, because yeah, they definitely they need a little help. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I think Senator Nguyen had a question. Go ahead.
Thank you. I kind of have a follow-up question around the illicit market. I know that we passed some legislation in 2021 that allowed for some pretty substantial, like in the millions of dollars, I believe, ability to go after and find some of these platforms that are facilitating all this illegal, I guess, drug sales. Has the CCB or the Attorney General's office taken the lead in instigating any of those, ability to be able to go after some of the platforms that are illegally facilitating all these illegal sales?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Could you elaborate on the millions of dollars to go after the illicit market, or can I phone a friend here?
I should say it's not millions of dollars, but you can sue them, and I think the intent was if you start suing some of these platforms for posting illegal weed sales, like that would be a way to stop the illegal illicit market.
Thank you for the question. I will actually ask Deputy Director Miles to jump in here.
Good afternoon. My name is Deputy Director Michael Miles, M-I-C-H-A-L-M-I-L-E-S.
I think you need to turn your mic on. Oh, is it on?
Is it on? Oh, sorry, this wasn't close enough. Again, this is, for the record, Deputy Director Michael Miles. That came through last session in 2023. We put it in regs, we started the process. It got put on hold as the LCB attorneys let us know that we needed summons power, direct summons power to be able to do that. So it's actually in our bill this year to get that through. We have the regs ready to go, as LCB has them as they're going through, preparing everything to turn it over to the NAC anyway, along with all those changes. So we're ready to go forward on that as soon as we get the summons and subpoena power.
May I follow up, Chair? No, that's good to hear. I always know that we're coming back. You guys are a fairly new agency, so I anticipate we will be back here fine-tuning things and figuring out what we need to implement some of the changes and policies that we want to go forward with. You had talked about how there was an ask to have, I guess, this task force or a police force, I'm not sure what it is, ultimately. Would they be working separately from local law enforcement agencies, or would they have a different mission? I know that in my conversations with our tourism sector, they have, a lot of like smaller sales, I guess I should say. I mean, they add up, but it sounds like this task force would be on higher volume, or is there any distinction on what their responsibilities would be for and how they distinguish from our local law enforcement partners?
Thank you for the question, Senator James Humm, for the record. To be determined. So that in our conversations with the illicit market, because we know, the illegal deliveries to the Strip, things like that, which I think you're referring to on the smaller scale. So in our conversations with Director Tagliati, as well as our conversations with industry, I think it would encompass all of the above. But really additional conversations need to be had on what the actual mission would be, how we would carry that out, and then how we would function together with DPS. As I said, we have a great relationship, and we look forward to continuing that and support for that task force, because it'll be a budget item. So I think that that's something we definitely need to consider to discuss.
And I would encourage, it just seems, I don't want it to be something that's duplicative if there are now DPS officers doing, investigations and arrests on the Strip alongside with, Metro officers, and who would be, who would be doing these prosecutions, and how successful they would be on trying to go forward with some of these prosecutions and jury trials. So I look forward to seeing what the bill language looks like. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, I don't see any questions. Thank you both so much for coming to present to us. That concludes our first presentation and leads us into our second presentation. We will also hear from the Nevada Department of Corrections. Please come on down whenever you're ready.
So it looks like I got 3 hours, I think. Anyway, it's James Renda. I'm Director for the Nevada Department of Corrections. Chair Scheibel and members of the Senate Judiciary, I just wanted to start off just to give you a run back of last session, of where we were, where we came, and where we're going. First, the biggest issues that we had when the session first started really was our staffing. It affected a lot in our department. It was really the fallout and recovery of the COVID pandemic that really cut us short. If anyone remembers, Department of Corrections was at statewide about 34% vacancy. Ely was at 52% correction officer vacancy, and Lovelock was at 48%. When you look at these numbers and what we did today, it really starts shaping of why we are starting to really progress and start improving and doing things that we should be doing, such as preparing for those offenders to make sure that they're getting out of our systems to be able to be well prepared to get into the public, and making sure they're reducing victims in our community so our families are safer. So when you look at what we did, when I looked at really some of the root issues of what happened with our staffing, when we started losing so many staff so quick, when you have a process that was, I don't want to say it's a state process or a department process, but a hiring process that was delayed, or when you have, it takes 4 to 6 months for an onboarding of an applicant, there's problems there, because when you have those individuals that apply for corrections, they're usually shotgunning to a bunch of agencies, the local law enforcement, other state law enforcement agencies, jails, county jails, city jails, police. And if we delay our tactics, then all of a sudden we realize that they get picked up elsewhere and we don't get anybody. Happy to say what I ended up doing, I took all that process, or the majority of it, away from the department's human resources, and had a contractor hired to do everything for us. It was more so I could hold them more accountable, because it seems like, you know, money talks. If you don't do what I tell you to do, we take your money away, we don't give you a job. So what they ended up doing, the company did all of our recruiting, hiring, marketing, research. They did all of got our backgrounds, worked on our psychologicals, all of our fitness exams, working with us. The biggest thing I did with them is to make sure that every applicant that applied, within 48 hours, they responded physically to that person and explained the process, helped them through it, and made them more comfortable about applying for the Department of Correction. Where we are today. So if you look at the southern part of the state of Nevada, and I'm going from Pioche to Jean to Indian Springs to North Las Vegas to Las Vegas, the last week of December, we did not have one correctional officer opening. We had 0% vacancy. Where that ended up taking us, well, at the end of December, we ended up getting 22 retirements, so that starts moving it up, but we had over 5,000 applicants for jobs in southern Nevada, just for corrections. When you talk about the other parts of the state, we still, the Carson City, we did really well. We were below 10% vacancy in correction officer in Carson City, but we still struggle with Ely and Lovelock. Even though we've got large gains at Lovelock, we're still struggling, but we're still averaging statewide now 19% vacancy, and that's down from 34%. Right now we have 14 new staff that are being trained in the academy that'll hopefully be all going up to Lovelock, or at least half will be. Even we have 6 that are at Ely for training that we are looking at hiring there. What I did at Ely, that was a big effect in our, the way we did our operations this year, was moving the security levels of the offenders from Ely to High Desert. And the reason behind that was it was all really around staffing and emergency response. When you have a facility that's at 52% vacancy and you had the highest security level offenders there with the largest gang issues and the largest violence issues, you have more incidents. And the incidents are usually more significant incidents. Very potential, which we almost had back in August. We had 3 homicides back to back, and we had no response. When we had no response from the sheriff's office or DPS fast enough, when we don't have staff there that had, at the time of the, here's a facility that had over 600 offenders, we only had 6 correction officers that were not on 16 hours when that incident kicked off. So when you have to look at hospital trips, having staff going past 16 hours, you have emergency response, hoping you have enough staff to actually secure areas, it becomes extremely dangerous and scary, and that should never happen. What the catalyst behind that, why I did what I did, was because I needed to make sure I had facility response, and I moved all those offenders that were at Ely down to High Desert where we do have emergency response. We have 3 facilities in the same compound. We have more than enough emergency response from Las Vegas Metro, which we're doing emergency drills with them all the time now. We actually teamed up with the police over at Creech Air Force Base and DPS, the United States Marshals, and Las Vegas Metro to help us on the emergency response of those higher security, which I could not do at Ely. When you move the population out, and I moved in a lower medium security protective housing population up at Ely, I was able to double the population. Today we're at 1,110 offenders at Ely, and half the amount of staff necessary to run that operation. So when you look at that, you have a population that really complies with direction. They have very, very few incidents. Those that are on protective custody do not want to act up because they do not want to move out. So they all behave, mostly. They behave pretty frequently. The incidents are not the same. They are not the stabbings, the big incidents that you have elsewhere that are like that were at High Desert, even though potentials are still there and could. When you talk about emergency trips, Ely has a hospital, but it does not have the level of an emergency care or services that we would have for the high security incidents, the stabbings, the head injuries, and that. So what we did, we would have to hire a helicopter service out of Salt Lake City to pick the offenders up that are in emergency care and fly them down to Las Vegas. When you talk about the budget issues and the amount of cost that is, when you're dealing with about 12 to 16 of them a year, to me, it's more even, not even cost effective, but more humanistic on those offenders to make sure we're getting faster emergency care and best emergency care by putting them at the High Desert State Prison where we have all that effort. We have not had one life flight. I think we just had one yesterday, but prior to yesterday, we had not had one life flight out of Ely since August. That is, like I said, big money saving issue for the state, and it's a better use of our staff and resources. The other thing that I thought was important to bring up is our programming. When I first got here in January of '23, because of that reduction in the staff that I talked about, they pretty much abolished mostly every program that we had out there almost. We pretty much abolished or refunneled our reentry staff to other resources so they could do other things because we were short in staff. Having these staffing levels up means that we can do a better business. And with helping with the better business with programming, which I think is going to be a big success, is we are now implementing the tablets, which you remember from last session. We got approval to bring in electronic devices, to do the RFP, to do the wait for the company Securus contract that just ended in January for the new company to come on board. They've already started doing the IT structural stuff for the tablets. We look at having our first tablets in operation starting at Ely in April 1st. What this is going to allow us to do is to do not only controlling behaviors, because it's a good tool for us and the staff to use as a tool for good and bad behavior. If you have bad behavior, reduce things on your tablets or take them away, and only provide the programming necessary or that we think you need. But if you start having better behaviors, we can actually add things to the tablets to increase the behavior of those offenders that even were bad behaviors in the past. But also to bring behavior programming to those tablets. MRT, which is one of the most recognized in the country, moral recognition therapy, we can actually bring that through the tablets and require certain offenders to have to go through it to make sure their behaviors change. Those are going to be also, I think I mentioned last session too, it's going to also help us with reallocating staff, because now we can do all law libraries through the tablets. We could do all GEDs, or the majority of the GEDs, through the tablets. We also could do Pell Grants, which is college education courses that can get associate's and bachelor degrees through the tablets. Long distance, even with their attorneys. These tablets can actually also do video visiting. When we dock them in stations, they could do video visiting all over the world. So if they lost contact with families from other countries, they can actually have contact through video. And it also allows emailing in and out through the system. All these things are bringing into the structure of, like I said, it helps us, even though it doesn't look like it, behavior, because we can actually help and increase better behavior by the use of these tablets or the decrease of the tablets. The other thing I thought was important to bring up too is when we talk about the summer months, I brought this is something that was already approved through Public Works, through the capital improvement projects that will be presented to the legislature this year for capital improvement, but is HVAC systems. When you look at High Desert State Prison in Indian Springs, every year it's like deja vu in the summer that it's too hot, they're not working properly, it's too warm in the units. Part of the CIP is to replace all of the HVAC swamp coolers that are at High Desert so it gets better efficiency. Just so if we don't get there quick enough, we ordered and purchased multiple portable units for there in case you get constituents that are complaining about heat. And we ordered over 200 individual cell swamp coolers for those cells that are more important to keep cooler, such as those offenders that are on psychotropic medications where their body temperatures are a lot warmer than other people, to make sure their safety is not jeopardized. The other thing that I think would be important that's kind of related to the HVAC is all of our infrastructure. When our infrastructure hasn't been repaired, replaced, fixed, or it's been band-aided for so many years, we're talking about even all of our kitchen equipment, all of our washing machines, all of those areas where we require certain temperatures and keep things from making sure they're sanitized properly for passing along infectious diseases. We've been violated by the health department year after year after year on our health records for the kitchens. That is extremely unacceptable. We finally started getting to see, we got ARPA funds to start working on them. We got Southern Desert just got theirs all redone. They're at High Desert now. They're going to be moving to Northern Nevada Correctional Center soon. We are also looking to try to find ways to help the kitchens that are at Lovelock and Ely, which hopefully this session we'll be able to find the money to do that. But just having these improvements is a big deal, not only for morale, but also for the safety of those offenders. When you talk about disturbances around the country, most disturbances are always related around the same thing: visits, food, or conditions of confinement. Well, food is really a safety issue on my end, not just nutritional issues, but it's something I want to make sure the state takes serious and knows how important that is to not only for the offenders, but also for the staff safety when they have to work in those areas. Also, when we talk about culture, changing all this, and when you have a staff that, so we look at High Desert State Prison, the average staff there have an average employment of 3 years. That could be a positive, and it could also be a negative. It's a very difficult for a facility that large with that high level of security offenders for such low senior officers to understand the learning process it takes to run a prison. So it's still staff are learning, so we require our senior staff to do a lot more training and a lot more hands-on with the newer staff. However, it also develops culture. It's important that with these new staff coming on, we develop a culture that is consistent to our mission, to making sure that it is just as important to help the offenders to be successful to protect our families. So that means being mentors, being those that can actually go out and help with the rehab or helping with training. We opened up our very first vocational ed services at the Southern Desert Correctional Center. It's a big deal. The Hope for Prisoners actually got funding for it, so it didn't come out of state money. But it's a school that is all for trades, learning carpentry, plumbing, electrical, welding, masonry, all the things that the community is telling us that they need help with. So we're teaching those offenders to get these certifications so that they can actually go out there and get real work that are sustainable. And it's the first time, if you look at nationally, in the prison systems, really where these programs are all set up are in minimum security facilities, because that's where you can get the larger number of offenders at once to be able to do the most appropriate training. This is one of the first that I know of in the country. We did it at a medium to maximum facility. And to me, those offenders are just as important to do the training, because those are the ones that we look at that are probably going to be recycled or recidivate more than those that are in the minimums. They still go back to our communities. They still get out from these mediums right to the community, and we need to make sure that they don't go out there victimizing us. The other thing that was a big deal that we opened up was our very first commercial driver's license training school. We've already had close to 50 graduates already from the training school. These offenders are actually, we bring them after they finish, we actually bring them to the Department of Motor Vehicle for testing and physicals, and they actually get set up so that the day they leave, they will actually will be able to have an easier way to get reinstated in their license, but also be able to get the jobs that, to me, are the most important for returning offenders that have nowhere to go. When you have somebody that probably has issues with socialization, social skills, trouble taking direction from people or supervisors, have nowhere to live, to me, it's a great opportunity to earn a large amount of money, having your own, the companies are providing the tractor trailers that have the apartments in them, so now they have housing, they have places to go, big money, and they can actually get sustainable jobs to make sure they're successful. So the last thing I just wanted to address that's constantly brought up, and it's also a big issue of mine too, is medical and mental health services. Still statewide, we are still struggling. It's even what I mentioned about our vacancies, that was for correctional officers. When we talk about medical mental health, we are struggling. We teamed up with Health and Human Services this year to do large recruiting drives, to try to get more and more clinical services, individuals that can work for us. To me, I think when you start, you Google even how much a psychiatrist makes out in the community and these jobs that are being offered, they're almost twice as much as what we offer in the Department of Correction. Very, very difficult for us to get anybody. So what happens in our department, we have to subsidize with contractors, which are very, very expensive. So it's, we're paying more money to contract out medical services than we should, because if we had our own staff to do this, the cost would be so much more reduced, but also have long-term relationships and clinical relationships that can actually help, which is most important in some of these mental health cases that we have. There is one more that's related to this, is addictions. The long-term in Department of Corrections in Nevada for addictions is there's no need for medical assisted therapy. There's no need for long-term substance use disorder treatment. And the philosophy behind that is if you're in a prison for years, your drug addictions will be healed by itself, that there would be no drugs available for you to actually continue your addiction, and minimum treatment would correct your behavior. So far from the truth. What we found out is not doing these treatment programs and medicated assisted therapies, actually those drives get stronger, those addiction drives. So that's where the gangs actually survive. That's where they make their money. That's where they target individuals that they know have addiction issues, and they pretty much extort them. They extort their families because they know they're that much wanting to get drugs. When they can't pay for drugs and don't have enough money for the drugs of choice, they go with what's called K2 and spice. K2 and spice is a very serious man-made chemical drug. If you Google it, you can almost, I think you can even buy it on Amazon. You can actually get paper that's already laced with K2 and spice, and you wouldn't even know what it looks like. It looks like a normal piece of paper. They send it through the mail. They rip it up in strips, and they smoke it. Doesn't get picked up on drug tests because it's not a drug. It's actually man-made chemicals. It's your Drano. It's your detergents you find in your homemade kitchen. We just had an accidental overdose last night on K2 spice. We had an accidental death. This is real, and this is something we have to target. What we did to start going after this is we teamed up with Health and Human Services, utilizing the opioid funds to do scanning of mail coming in through the system. And what the scanning does is, just a little education on it, there's two types of scanning. There's a density scanner, which will actually pick up when there's a weapon, or if there's a package of drugs in an envelope, it'll pick up that. However, what's more important is the ionic scanner. The ionic scanner will pick up paper that is not something on the paper that's not made of paper or ink, and it'll alert us. The very first day we implemented the test of the scanner down at the High Desert State Prison, they started going through the mail. They even went through legal mail. The first legal envelope we got was about 8 inches deep, paper, and it was all legal paper. It was documents from court. However, it picked up in the center of it was carved out a small carving that fit actually a very minute cell phone inside the legal mail. That was our very first day of training on the scanner, which was just a couple weeks ago. So I think we're going to see dramatic recoveries on this scanner, and which I hope that if we can prove, then we can start using some of the opioid funds to statewide do this in every facility. The other thing we utilizing through the opioid funds is body scanners. Body scanners are a little different from the body scanners that you see at the airports when you go through, but they're very similar. But they will pick up density inside the body and pick up anything that's hidden inside the body while they're fully clothed. Most of the prison systems around the country are already incorporating this. Again, we're doing a pilot program at the High Desert State Prison, and we'll have everything documented every time that we get something. And I think that's going to be important to prove how big of a deal this will be statewide. But anyway, that's all I have to talk about. If you have any questions, I'm here to see if I can get something for you.
Well, thank you so much. We always appreciate having you in our committee, and you being always available to us to ask questions and to partner together to make, good things happen in Nevada. So I'll open it up to questions from members of the committee. Senator Nguyen, go ahead.
Thank you. Oh, no. I got really nervous. I got really nervous there. I think we're good, though. I have a couple of questions. I know R1 really, and maybe a couple follow-up, if that's okay, Chair. We made some good progress last session reducing commissary and medical costs for people that are incarcerated at NDOC. And I know that as you've been able to implement that, I know the families that I've heard from appreciate that the money there, I mean, this doesn't just fall on, unfortunately, the people that are incarcerated, it also falls on the family that are sending money. You know, I think for the people that haven't been on this committee, a lot of those commissary items that are discretionary have very inflated costs associated with them. Can you talk about what are the barriers to further reducing some of those financial barriers? I know we put a lot of, we jack up the prices of those items in order to pay for a lot of staffing. So can you talk a little bit about that and what other barriers there might be?
Sure, James Renner for the record. So the issues, and I don't think it's appropriate, but it's what we were given, is out of our commissary funds, we have 49, we're still currently 49 full-time employee positions that the commissary has to pay for. And where that money comes from is the raise in the cost of commissary items. So our markup on our items pays for staffing that, to me, should never be put on us. It should have been should always have been a general fund issue of come through that. If we move more positions out of there, we had 101 last session full-time employee positions that came out of telephone revenues, and it's called the inmate welfare funds and the commissary funds. When you start opening up to having more choices to be able to utilize for the money, not utilizing it for full-time employees, I could reduce commissary costs. I could also increase free phone calls for every offender, and that was something I missed too. We are starting off with on the tablets, which can do phone calls from the tablet, so every offender, whether you're in segregation, anywhere, you will have access to a phone in your cell. It's not used like a regular cell phone. It's no different from a wall phone. It's all recorded, done the same exact way. Anyway, it's going to allow start at 3 minutes free every single day, so at least families have some communications with their families or support, which a lot of them never have because of costs. When you reduce the full-time employee paid positions, it gives me opportunities to utilize more money, charge less for commissary, but use more money to be able to allow those offenders to use longer phone call times to those that are really trying to get help or trying to reach family that they have lost contact to, or whether they're overseas, whatever it is. But it also allows us to, like I said, be able to reduce commissary costs so the families aren't going to be hit harder with these bills when they start seeing how much we're charging for a honey bun or a Milky Way. But that's really what it comes down to.
Can you, I know that there's some people that, you know, maybe have the attitude that you're incarcerated, we shouldn't be paying for this if we can capture that money. What kind of, how does that work for you and correction officer safety, general goodwill and mentality when you have lower costs and people are able to have communication with their family members? How does that actually impact the people that are working in those, in your facilities, or potentially on recidivism rates when people are ultimately leaving the prison?
Sure, James Renner for the record. Great question, because when you talk about relationships and communications to the families and support groups, having that contact actually does reduce tensions and problems inside the facilities that staff have to deal with. When you separate and lose all contact with family, and they can't afford to, start meeting, talking to their kids, talking to their families, the security is being jeopardized. When you have someone that has nothing to lose, that has no contact with their children, and offer more contact with their children, trust me, they will start behaving. They will start knowing that if, like I said, with this behavior tool, if I am getting even free phone calls to speak to my kid that I haven't spoken to in years because I don't have money, I'm going to behave because I know I'm going to lose that. There's a lot of communication, and it's amazing how much the families pay part of our treatment and behavior programs in the facility. When we have difficult offenders that are have really severe behavior problems, whether it's related to mental health or just manipulative behavior, we do utilize the families to be able to help with controlling those behaviors or hiding those behaviors or getting rid of them, because the families can actually help us more with communication with the offenders than myself or somebody else. But it really is a big deal if we can start helping with some of the behavior stuff.
Anything else? Okay. I think Vice Chair Flores has a couple of questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. And forgive me, because this may be a dated comment. I have not had an opportunity to engage in this conversation, I believe it's been now 2 sessions, so it may have changed. But I know in the past, working with Nevada State College and Truckee Meadows and a few other of our, namely community college type campuses, they had brought up issues in the past, particularly with programs that were going into the correction centers, and they brought up the issue that there was a discrepancy where we had a lot more availability for programming and credits for males versus females. And they were educating me a little bit about that we just did not offer the same amount of programming. And I don't know if that's still an issue that we're seeing now, or do we see some parity now? I was just curious to engage in that conversation.
Sure, James, for the record, when you talk about even parts of the state where they're like you mentioned with the difference between the men and the women, we don't have any of the women facilities in areas where we have a lot of educational support. So they're going to get less educational support. But like I said, with these long-distance learning, which we used during the COVID times, that's where you're going to start seeing a lot of these issues where we can't reach out to the rural areas, we can't reach out to the women that are in certain areas of the state that don't have that access. All these colleges, I already met with the universities, both up in the north and the south, and like I said, on the Pell Grants. That I truly think, we have to see how this works out, but I truly think that's our avenue to spread educational tools and programmings from universities through every offender in the system, no matter what status they're on. And it is very possible that we will see those numbers 6 and 7 times higher than they are today because of that long-distance learning availability, which we never had before. Our facilities don't have Wi-Fi, so it's not like before we had these tablets, we can even offer those universities this. These tablets are not Wi-Fi like a cell phone. These tablets it's an LTE network that actually is a closed network, and the systems come into a control room and we allow things in or out. It doesn't automatically go right like your cell phone right to a source. So that's what allows us to do it every single day, everywhere in the state at any time. And I think that's where we're going to start seeing those educational changes in the state and open it up to everybody, not just certain men in certain parts of the state either.
And thank you for that. And I understand the technology is the ultimate equalizer in so many different realms and in such significant positive ways. Do you know, have you extracted data where we are today in terms of availability of programs? And obviously, I'm coming through the lens of rehabilitation, right? And we know that a lot of these programs where you can come out of this setting with X amount of credits, having had an opportunity to maybe take up a trade or XYZ, whatever that may look like. But do we know how large that discrepancy is right now? Do we have any data on that?
Sure, I don't have it with me, but I could, but it's embarrassing. We do not do enough programming. We do not do it system-wide, and there's a lot of variety of reasons for that. I mean, just trying to even get, without long-distance learning, just trying to get any program into like Ely or Lovelock and getting anybody, even volunteers, to come into those locations, it's extremely difficult. And in the correction system too, we have so many different levels of classification that when you can't mix certain people, certain classifications, now you're talking smaller and smaller groups. So if I had someone from a university doing a class or even doing GED that comes in, they can't mix populations. So when they come in, they're dealing with like 6, 7 people at a time. Well, we have 10,500 offenders. So it's not where it should be. And that's why when we compare, we can get those numbers too of what we're doing today and how many, and even where it came from since last year. But it's going to be more important to see where it goes. And I do think this is going to be a real time to be able to show our success when this happens.
Thank you for that. And I'd love to see the data and looking forward to the new implementation of all the new technology that's out there. Thank you.
I think I saw a question from Senator Hansen. Go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Assemblywoman Hanson and I toured Lovelock facilities this past year, and we were horrified by the conditions in the kitchen and all the sanitary things, infrastructure you were talking about. And we were delighted to hear that they actually had budgeted money for all that. And then I understand that it was clawed back or something. Can you enlighten me on that a little bit?
So James Renner, for the record, I probably can't, but somebody else probably could. But all I know is that what we ended up doing when we started seeing where we could start getting or asking for funds for kitchens, we prioritized. No matter how bad you saw Lovelock, it still was one of our better kitchens, which is absurd, but we did it in priority, and that's why we did Southern Desert, which has been a failure in the health department since 2015 and still has not been repaired. So we prioritized. But Ely and Lovelock actually came the lowest on our list. So when we started finding the monies, when we started getting it in, we prioritized it, thought we were able to have the whole thing, and we're going to find other sources to be able to do the kitchens there. And we're going to actually do a study this year, too, that's going to determine what is really necessary at the Lovelock Prison kitchen. And hopefully we'll be able to get funding for that as we move on.
Wow, that's really disturbing, actually, because they were very bad. I mean, it was like to the point of breaking down. You're not going to be able to feed every inmate in the place. Next question. I understand that there are approximately 800 inmates that are actually illegally in the country and that they could be deported, and you would save about $28 million if that happened. Is there any efforts with you guys to cooperate with the federal efforts to get illegal criminals out of the country, illegal immigrant criminals out?
So James Renner, for the record, there's actually 1,100 today. We have 1,100. Usually it average is always about 10% of our population are undocumented offenders. We have been in communications with ICE. We did set up even a stronger process with notifying ICE. Currently today, what happens with those offenders that with the felonies, all 1,100 would have what we call ICE holds on them. Before their end of their sentence or before they're paroled or eligible, we contact ICE on numerous occasions to let them know who we have and what the holds are, and we constantly keep reminding them weekly. We have a weekly generated list to keep reminding them of the dates that they're either eligible for parole or for release. We probably, when I look at last year's records, we had 178 undocumented that were actually discharged from the Department of Correction. All of them were actually picked up from ICE, except for I think 32 that were not. And I don't know what those reasons were. ICE does not let us know. It could be that the ICE holds where they were looking for a relative or a friend, and it had nothing to do with them themselves, but there were about 32 that were not picked up. When we release them to ICE, we usually have agreements that we bring them to a jail system that is closest to them. So we bring a detainer to the jail, drop them off there, and they actually pick them up. But yes, if you look at 1,100, that's the size of a good size medium security facility. All those, if they were in one facility, would cost you were about right, about $28 million a year to operate that facility just for that 1,100. If you remove all those 1,100 from our system, it would be almost $60 million in a 2-year budget
So do you guys only, do they have to complete their sentence before they can be
So,
deported?
James Renner for the record, yes, they do, but there are ways that I think we can, by statute, be able to make agreements with ICE. We don't do that, but I think there is a way that we can actually make agreements to let them earlier. The problem with letting undocumented go earlier at the end of their sentences is they found that there was more than are coming back into the system after we release them. So if the ICE takes them to a different country, the possibilities of them to come back in the country undocumented is still high. So when you're a victim of a crime, a pretty significant crime for a homicide on a family member, you don't want to see them get out and then all of a sudden they get illegally back in the country and now we see them again. So it's a pro and a con on how we look at with whether we release them before the end of their sentence or not.
Well, I would love to see more of that. Then you could free up some of that money to take care of things like kitchens and washing things for all the other prisoners. So anyway, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Ellison, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. One thing we had that worked out really well in the rural areas was the honor camps. And I know that you guys are having trouble getting people in there, but a lot of the people that applied for them positions were good, hardworking individuals. But they said the restrictions and was so hard to get in there. So for what they did for the communities, and they gave these guys that were getting out worth ethics. And you talk to these guys and it's, God, we love being in honor camps because you're not in a sale, you're not around a bunch of more criminals that want to beat you up. It worked out really good. They helped the seniors, they helped the communities, they helped NDOT. They do so much for our communities. Is there a way to look at some of the restrictions to help get that down, to get these honor camps filled again? It was a great program.
Yeah, James Renner for the record. So it is true, our numbers are getting less and less that are actually eligible, and that was related around an AB 236 bill that went out years ago that really made it more difficult for those that probably didn't need to come to prison, that aren't coming to prison now. So we're getting a higher level offenders in prison than we are. And our lower levels are depleting. And it is, to me, it is alarming that even with NDF, with the fires, our camps are depleting so much. I'm worried about, with the help that we can provide from the offenders. We are looking at trying to find money to be able to increase our capacity at the Casa Grande Correctional Center down in Las Vegas, which is probably our largest release center for jobs. The offenders there, and the majority go to jobs during the day. They come back at night to finish their sentences off, which is a big deal because it gets them stabilized before they go home. However, we had a problem over the last few years with mold, which closed the facility down. We just finished one side of it. Now we're looking at trying to get the money and resources to get the other half back up. The problem is every month you wait is adding on about $30,000 a month is what the increase in the costs are. We were at $400,000 last year, and now it's about $800,000 to finish it, and it keeps growing and growing. And that's some of the things that I'm hoping the legislature will help me be able to do too, so that we can open up some of those areas so that we could put more of those offenders in there. The problem with the camps that are further out, there's no medical resources for them. So the restrictions on medical are very strong, even something as simple as a bee sting allergies. If we have no medical staff and no emergency response out there, we can't put offenders out there for those reasons and put their lives in danger. So really the medical issues and the mental health clinical issues around the camps that are out there, we just don't have resources for them. Looking at reducing the classification, I'm not sure I would be in support of that, only because we don't put sex predators into those camps. We don't put those with violent crimes with weapons, and I'm not sure I would really want to reduce it to be able to worry about what if something happens in the community, because it still does with some of them that we have in there. But I think our capacity is what we have to look at. Opening up capacity to put more of those in there that I know I can. if that helps.
Yeah, we got some great facilities that might be a little far out, like Wells, but you had the ones in Carlin that that was an issue just recently. You're still paying for a facility that's not being used, which they did a lot for NDOT, cleaning roads and whatever, bridges and stuff like this, weed control, whatever. But these people, I never seen, but I think one runner in radio can catch that guy. But it's important to look at these. I think it's probably one of the best programs they ever had, and I hate to see it go away. So.
Yeah, James Renner for the record, just so I can answer that. I did speak with the city of Carlin. I met with the mayor. I met with the townspeople in the town meeting going over what we're going to do with Carlin. And we are actually going to be increasing services to Carlin to be able to do prevention of fires. Not firefighters, but prevention of firefighters working along the train tracks and clearing. Wells, the problem with Wells is it's the money issue of keeping upkeep of Wells. Wells has some very significant long-term maintenance problems. The roof is collapsing, their generator's gone. I mean, these are big money things that I'm not sure, 80 offenders that are in there is going to be able to support the cost of this with these other facilities that I can move them into. So really, I think Wells is what we are looking at on closing down starting in July, but Carlin is going to be one of our main hubs for community services up in that area.
Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Director. Two questions, with your indulgence, Chair. On the healthcare issue, what do you feel NDOC is doing to try to improve medical care, the needed medications, getting to inmates? We've heard a lot in the press, and I'm just wondering what direction is NDOC going to try to make sure inmates get the health care they need, get the right medications they need for their health conditions?
James Renner for the record. So it's a big question because there's a lot of answers. But anyway, our medical director we hired from Tennessee, retired from Department of Corrections as medical director in Tennessee, has great experience in being able to know how to finagle even rural areas for medical. The amount of staffing that he's encouraged to come into the system to be able to encourage them to work with offenders for less pay than they would get. It was incredible on how he was able to do this. But it's also what I thought was important that might help with medication and services is that our medical director took the responsibility of what we call medical review boards. It's no different from a insurance company when they look at whether a treatment should happen, not happen, medication, this medication or that. He took it away from the responsibility of the providers in the department and moved it outside the department. So there's no one's looking at it as an offender's asking for this, or nobody's looking at it as a client that they had problems with or multiple issues with. It's more neutral, and I think that's a big deal because now we're starting to see a shift in the right treatment that's really been approved, the right type of medication that may have been lacking in the past, or I don't want to say too much because it could be a legal issue, but I do believe that our services are a lot better today than they even were last year, and that's going to continue to improve. And like I said, just teaming up with Health and Human Services, I mean, it's not just my responsibility or my problem, it's the community and it's the other departments, so I'm dragging them in to make sure they're helping us as well to make sure these services are covered. Long distance telemedicine has been improved. We do a large number of telepsych right now, which was never done. I think that's huge, providing these services where you couldn't get it. I think it's really just we have so much going on with medical and mental health improvement in the agency. I think it's just going to be something that'll even change from now to the end of session that you'll see as a huge improvement. And I know that's going to reduce the lawsuits and save the staff, the state money as well.
Thank you, Director. And one follow-up. Thank you, Chair. The children at NDOC, the youthful offenders under 18. I wonder if you could update us on how many kids are in NDOC custody, what facility they're at, and what kind of programming they're getting, education, and mental health care. I wonder if you could update us on that.
Sure. James Venda for the record. So we have two locations. One's for the men. We have 14 young adults that are at the Northern Nevada Correctional Center up here in Carson City. We moved them down here last session because if you remember that they were up at the Lovelock Correctional Center, I couldn't get the resources out there to help them. Today we moved them down to Carson City. And I have Deputy Director Tess Weed can go with the programming of the youth that are there. But down in the women, we have one 14-year-old that's down in Florence McClure. I think she might be 15 now, but my struggle is it isn't getting, enough programs. It's getting socialization with some of them when they're only by themselves. And like I said, we only have one, which I can't mix with the regular population that's in a extremely large housing unit by herself. Just seeing people coming in and out is like a big deal for her with socialization. But Deputy Director Tessweed can go on to some of the programming pieces of it.
And before you do that, I'm sorry to interrupt. It sounds like we're having another technical issue. The technical issue of the day is that the audio has cut out from here to Las Vegas. So I'm going to ask that our tech support team look into that. In the meantime, I am going to ask you to continue because all this will be recorded, but I also know that we have a large number of support or people who tune into our meetings online. So I'm not sure if the audio's been cut for them as well, but that way they'll be able to go back and listen to this conversation. But I just wanted to acknowledge that we're not trying to exclude anybody who might be on the phone or online from this conversation, but I also do want to keep our meeting moving along. So I'll update you if we get an update on that. And in the meantime, please go ahead.
Emily Testweed for the record. We have the young adult unit up at NNCC. We have 14, 14 youthful offenders there. They are currently receiving education services through CCAE, and we've been working on the Title I-D funding to expand some of those services for them. We are in the process of hiring a social worker to really lead a program, program review team. And so they would be coordinating with program staff, correctional officers, the school, mental health, on a daily and weekly basis. And we would be implementing a level system, so incentivize positive behaviors, group model thinking, and we are reaching out to our partners in the community for recreational opportunities. We have a yard out back that's specific to that population, and exploring options with them as well. So I'm really excited about some of the changes that we're making at NNCC in the near future.
Thank you. And no further questions.
Any other questions? I have just a couple of brief questions. I wanted to go back to the Pell Grants and ask if there are, I know that it's been a process to try to even get approved for those Pell Grants, and I'm wondering if you can update us on how that's going.
So specifically with Pell Grants, we've met with Western and College of Southern Nevada and the schools that were actually part of the Pell Grant opportunities. And the Pell Grants actually go to the schools to pay their instructors. When we allow offenders to sign up for the programs for associate's degree or certifications or for bachelor degrees, there has to be a component of that they're going to make sure that they continue with it and that they actually dedicated to the program for the education. But it's going to be open to everybody, and we're not going to tell somebody no because they have some, whether it's a disability of learning or whether it's some concentration issues. The Pell Grants are also going to pay for those instructors to actually come in person as well once in a while. It's mostly long distance, but to come in to help with those individuals that are struggling. And then in our Department of Corrections, we actually are doing a training program for tutoring and allowing those offenders that already have been through college or been specialized in certain fields in the community to tutor as they're doing the college courses for the Pell Grants. But really, the Pell Grants are coming from the universities that are getting the grants from the federal government, and they're just coming to join us.
And are there concerns about those grant funds drying up or disappearing under the current administration?
I have no idea, but I would be upset if they did because we really do need them. Those are big deals.
Okay, thank you. And I have one other question. I agree with my colleague over here, Senator Hansen, about reducing costs for the prison, and absolutely having fewer people in the prison system is one way to do that. And so I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about people who are released on parole and then come back into the prison system, and whether you're finding that this process is working the way that you would expect it to, or whether we're expending extra money in that process as well.
Sure, James Renner for the record. So currently we have about 3,400 offenders that are back in the prison system that are only back on technicalities or technical violations for parole. A lot of those violations, they span from a whole group of areas. I mean, parole would be best to answer this, but it's a long different range of different reasons they violate offenders in the community. They come back into the system. The revocations happen, they get sent automatically back for review to be returned back within 90 days, but a lot of those offenders refuse to actually go back because of they can't resolve the issues of the violations that they had, whether it's housing or whether it's they can't get transportation or whatever their issues are that they can't finish programs, so they stay in the prison system. Those offenders, 3,400 of them, if they were able to stay out in the community and able to be successful out there and get the right support that they needed and the additional support, it can actually reduce our population by that many if it actually worked, which is a big deal. And to keep them out in the community is actually the safest thing that I think, because I ran parole in the state of Connecticut and found that those that are under supervision actually have the best opportunities to succeed because they have some guidance and we're watching them and we can monitor them. Once they get released under the end of their sentence with no supervision, to me it's one of the most dangerous things we can do, because then we have no control and no supervision, no guidance for programs that can actually follow them. So those 3,400 are alarming to me.
Thank you. And
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Director Zurinder, for your great presentation. Thank you for always coming here and answering our questions, too. Appreciate it. So I didn't think I had a question, but this just recent things you were just talking about. Offenders, once they do their time, pay their debt to society, and are released, what percentage are having trouble getting jobs? And let me just follow that with one of our predecessors, Assemblyman Tyrone Thompson, had brought a bill called Ban the Box. And so on a job application, employers weren't able to say, have you ever been convicted of a felony? One of my students showed me a job application, college student, and on it, it said, have you ever been convicted of a misdemeanor, or have you ever been arrested? So this is the new way to stop people who have done one stupid thing in their life from getting a job in the mall even. They showed me the application. They said it was from the mall. They tried to apply for a job in the mall, I don't know, some part-time job. But so that's the new thing that's on applications now. Have you ever been arrested? I didn't say, was it a false arrest? It just said, have you ever been arrested? I mean, we already know that some of the things people get arrested for are very minor and small and petty. And then the other one, have you ever been convicted of a misdemeanor? It was on that application too. So do you even know, like, people that end up, they can't get a job, they try, just even a part-time job in the mall, they can't even get that. What percentage of the people that end up coming back, is it because they can't get a job? Thank you.
Yeah, James Renner for the record. So our new recidivism study is showing that we're at a little over 22% recidivism rate. When you look at that, when you look at the jobs that are being offered, it is, and this is the first I heard of misdemeanors or arrests, which I think it shouldn't be there. When you talk about a job, any job if there's a reason you can't have a convicted felon because you have to have access to NCIC screens or whatever you have to do, there's a reason for that. But the jobs out there, not every job needs to know, if you've ever been arrested before. And actually, I hired an ex-offender as an employee for the Department of Corrections. And if you looked at 5 years ago, it was against our rules and regulations from our Human Resources Department for me to hire an ex-offender. I actually hired an ex-offender to do programming, and found that even the ex-offender that I have, he is probably one of our best programmers. He's one of our best mentors for those offenders because he's been through everything and actually is someone that can teach them that went through the same thing he has and give experience from it and be able to get people to change their lives around. Now, in corrections, we have a lot of confidential stuff. So to me, yeah, I guess you would say if you're arrested, you shouldn't be in the Department of Corrections. It's far from the truth because we can actually put you in areas where you're not going to have access to files, you're not going to have access to that, and not every job out there needs to know or needs that. And when you start seeing these offenders that are not being successful coming back because of the jobs, it's really what we're trying to do in the department. I'm trying to get offenders who will be ex-offenders to have job skills so they can actually work. And if I'm hiring them, I mean, that the businesses should be doing the same, unless there's a real reason they can't be based upon the type of crime they had for the type of work they got. But it is, it's an obstacle that shouldn't be there, and it's hurting our communities by not getting them the sufficient help they need for the jobs, and then all of a sudden they just recidivate and victimize us and come back.
Thank you very much for your response. I think that concludes all of our questions at this point. So right on 2:30 on the dot, I told you we were trying to get out of here around 2:30. So thank you so much, Director, for your comments, for being here. I know that we will see you again. And that concludes our presentation. We do still have one more item on the agenda, though, which is public comment. So I will invite anybody wishing to give public comment in person down to the table here in Carson City or in Las Vegas. And it looks like we have a couple folks coming down here. Just a reminder, please do give us your name and the spelling of it first and last when you comment, and limit your remarks to about 2 minutes.
Greetings, okay. Greetings, Chair and the committee. My name is Jagada Chambers, Jagada, last name Chambers, Chambers. I just wanted to come and briefly actually give the director some salutations and greetings because he definitely has been transparent. I was part of a group that was able to have a visit at High Desert in the middle of the summer when it was over 115 degrees. I'm formerly incarcerated. I was incarcerated in Florida, and Florida summers it was outrageous. There's obviously no air conditioning or fans. And to be honest, it was way worse here in Nevada. So I think that there has been some efforts in but we know that next summer it's going to be unbearable in there again. Secondly, I would just talk about, again, the director is very humbled. Our probation is very unique in our state. I think it's housed in the Department of Public Safety. Parole and probation are two different things. And the mentality of how we are being engaged, I personally go in front of parole and probation regularly. The programming that's missing is missing inside as well as outside. So an opportunity for a fix there is to hopefully somehow get parole under the Department of Corrections to give that stage, the action to rehabilitate and engage in our communities. And again, I just want to be very frank how appreciative I am at you all even listening and attentive in the questions that were asked. Thank you that much.
Thank you so much for joining us. I don't see anybody else here to give public comment in person, so we will go to the phones, please.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to provide public comment today, please press star 9 or raise your hand in the Zoom app to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 415. You are unmuted and may begin. Caller, you are unmuted on our end. You may be muted on yours.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello, my
Please go
name is
ahead.
Crystal. Thank you. Hello, my name is Crystal Mooneyhan, ChrystalMooneyhan, and I would like to speak in regards to the facility conditions across all NDOC locations and specifically conditions at Gene Conservation Camp, JCC, where I was housed during my incarceration. JCC recently failed their health inspection due to sanitary conditions. The women located at this camp keep the kitchen very clean. However, the reason for failure is the appliances and dilapidated conditions themselves. The hot water in the dishwasher is supposed to be heated up to 180 degrees, but only gets to 60. JCC does not have a running freezer and hasn't for over a year and a half. The sinks leak, which lead to mold growth. The doors do not properly seal, leaving room for insects such as cockroaches, ants, stink bugs, spiders, and scorpions to get into the culinary, leaving the prep areas dirty and unsanitary. The women's choices are either to risk getting ill or spend an obscene amount of money on canteen food. I wish I could say this is only at the women's facility, but these issues are standard across the state. Southern Desert hasn't consistently had hot water for years. High Desert swamp coolers don't work, and maintenance spends all summer running in circles to fix them. NNCC had wastewater feeding into the kitchen. The entire state is a mess. Facilities leave people living in inhumane, dangerous conditions. If we as a state are going to put people in prison, we have to ensure that they are safe and sanitary. Nevada is not doing that. I hope you look into it and help us find ways to make sure that people are protected during their incarceration. Thank you. Hello?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Hello, my name is Yesenia Moyagaray, Yesenia I'm calling to speak on the ongoing crisis within Nevada's prison system. It has endangered the lives of multiple incarcerated people every single day, and it's more than a matter of staffing shortages. It borders on deliberate neglect and systemic failure. We must address the inhumane conditions caused by this extreme heat. Many of Nevada's prisons lack central air conditioning, forcing incarcerated people to endure dangerous temperatures during the summer months. We've heard about faulty cooler swamps, if they function at all, and they provide little relief. These conditions are not just uncomfortable, they are life-threatening. Second, food safety remains a serious concern. It's more than just unclean kitchens. It's spoiled, nutritionally deficient food, creating additional health risks for incarcerated families. At the same time, commissary prices are outrageously high. No one should have to rely on overpriced alternatives to avoid hunger or malnutrition. Beyond these urgent material conditions, the failure to provide adequate mental health care and substance use treatment is worsening cycles of harm and recidivism. And the lack of mental health programming means that incarcerated individuals who need support are left untreated and suffer in silence. On top of these failures, legislators must stop scapegoating immigrant communities that are in detention serving their time. Instead of deflecting blame onto vulnerable populations, they should focus on fixing the inhumane conditions and systemic neglect that define Nevada's prison system. Immigrants, like all incarcerated people, deserve humane treatment, access to health care, and pathways home, not to be used as political distractions. The most effective way to reduce costs and improve safety is not to invest in more prisons or superficial reforms, but to bring our people home. Expanding second look policies, increasing parole opportunities, and investing in true rehabilitation outside of the cages will do far more for public safety than keeping people trapped in inhumane and failing institutions. We demand immediate action to address the extreme heat, food insecurity, and predatory pricing, because the complete lack of essential health and rehabilitation services and the scapegoating of our communities continue to endanger our people. Nevada must shift its priorities away from punishment and towards real justice, healing, and community investment.
Broadcast, do we have anybody else?
Good afternoon.
Oh, go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Denise Bolaños, Bolanos, and I'm the Associate Director at Return Strong. We want to thank the members of the committee for their follow-up questions, as it shows your commitment to the well-being of incarcerated people and the communities they will be a part of upon release. And I also want to acknowledge Director Zoranda's update and the efforts being made to improve conditions. They're critical steps, and we appreciate the progress. Unfortunately, it doesn't change the reality that people live inside Nevada's prisons. On January 29th, a 13 stormed multiple units at Southern Desert Correctional Center between 10:30 p.m. and 3 a.m. in a mass night raid. They kicked in doors, brandished guns, chemical agents, and tasers, and physically dragged people from their bunks by their feet onto the cement while they were sleeping. They screamed, threatened, and created chaos. This was not a response to an emergency. This was an orchestrated act of terror. The body cams were used to take still pictures after the fact, but not to record the raid as it happened as required. Excessive violence and use of force are happening daily, and it is the same violent culture that led to the deaths of Christian Walker and Patrick O'Dell. We have surveys detailing the excessive use of force and the trauma that it causes, not just for incarcerated people, but for the good COs who feel trapped and forced to witness the behavior. An oversight hearing is needed to address the abuse. It's not normal and it can't continue. I also need to push back on the term illegal criminal immigrants. It's dehumanizing and inaccurate. No person is illegal, and people are more than their worst mistakes. We should be using more elevated language that respects people's humanity in these spaces, and suggesting that we fix the kitchens by deporting people is not only cruel, but completely misses the point. Human rights aren't a budget line item, and we can't balance this already flawed system by throwing people away. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Yvonne Everlund. It's EFBERLUND, and I am here to speak about the lack of reentry care for incarcerated individuals. I am a mother of a recently released individual, and what I have witnessed during my son's reentry into society is nothing short of heartbreaking. My son spent 4 years behind bars, but this wasn't his first time. Each time he went in, he came out worse. Why? because despite NDOC's mission statement promising rehabilitation, there was no real effort to help him change. No education, no training, no programs. Why? Because he was constantly on lockdown, and in that isolation, he became idle, and when someone is forced into idleness, nothing good comes from it. The first time he was sentenced, I thought this will be the moment they will help him turn his life around. The second time, I still had hope. The third time, I thought surely they will help him now, but each time the system failed him. His charges escalated. This time, hopefully his last time, I did something different. Instead of trusting the system that had no interest in his success, I educated myself. I bought self-help books and workbooks, and together we worked through them. 15-minute phone calls a few times a month. It wasn't much, but it was something. Before his release, I sought advice from a man who had served 20 years in NDOC. He told me what to expect and how to approach my son and how to support him, but nothing prepared me for the reality. The day he was released, he walked out in his prison blues carrying a box. 4 years of his life reduced to what he could carry. He was dropped off in one of the worst neighborhoods in Las Vegas, surrounded by crime, addiction, and poverty. This was his introduction back into the world. Since then, I have watched him struggle in ways most people never think about. Simple things, being in a restaurant, walking through a store, sitting at a family baseball game, fill him with anxiety. He told me, "Mom, it's hard enough trying to remember how to eat using a fork, a knife, and a plate, let alone cook for myself." He shuts down, overwhelmed by the tasks we take for granted. So I have to ask, how is this rehabilitation? How did NDOC prepare him or anyone for reentry? How many others are released with nothing, no support, only to end up right back inside? Why are Nevada prisons overcrowded? Because the system isn't designed to rehabilitate, it's designed to recycle. And until we demand real change, this cycle will never end. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Kalae Casorso, Kalae, last name Casorso. I am on the Return Strong Board of Directors. We too appreciate Director Zarenda's transparency and cooperations with the issues that we bring to his attention, and thank you to all of you who ask questions pertaining to things that we work on a daily basis. I've been asked to read a statement from one of our members who was not able to participate today. Her son is housed at NCC, and this is her statement. Food in prison is something I never thought about. I'm ashamed to say I didn't care. I was one of those, lock them up, folks. Let them eat whatever. Then my life turned upside down. My son entered prison. We learned quickly feeding prison residents is not a priority. Among the many issues we struggled with was the basic necessity of life, food. It's the key to good health. It's the key to chronic bad health. It became apparent for the incarcerated, food was just a part of the punishment. Maintaining good health is not even a thought. Over and over, I heard about food amounts that might fill a kindergartner's stomach, but never a grown man's. One slice of bologna between two slices of bread, 2 or 3 wilted slices of lettuce, maple syrup packets with no pancake, the lack of fresh fruit, a tiny juice box consumed within 2 gulps. My son was just transferred to another facility. He told me yesterday he had a banana and the day before an orange. He was so happy about that, and that makes me terribly sad. Fresh fruit. Imagine being happy over fresh fruit. The science is all out there regarding diet and physical health, diet and mental health, diet and behavior. There are amazing projects going on in other states. We encourage Nevada to look into these programs to support our incarcerated residents. I urge you as legislators to go deep. Help us feed our loved ones, not steak or lobster or anything ridiculous, just a healthy diet. Nutritional food in adequate amounts. That's all we ask, food that promotes health. Thank you.
hope you can hear me.
We can
My
hear
name
you.
is Anna Robinson, ANAROBINSON. I was released from NDOC's Gene Conservation Camp in 2023 and was on parole for almost a year, serving a 4-year sentence. I graduated from high school, I went to college, and had no previous criminal history before going to prison. Because of this, I was considered too low of a risk for most programming, yet still considered a violent offender, so wasn't eligible for an early release. So I just sat and was detained for 4 years, not getting any fresh air the first year and no fresh foods for most of the rest. No medical treatment without the threat of going back to the women's prison and losing days off my release date. Days are a lot harder to get than they are taken away. I had no write-ups. I gave the COs no trouble, was considered a model inmate. Since being released, it has been really hard to get anywhere or to become anything. We are set up to fail. If we didn't have mental health issues before prison, we definitely have them now. If we didn't have medical issues before we went to prison, we definitely do now. I have my mom. Without her, I wouldn't be standing here today. Most people coming out of prison have nobody. But even with my support system, it is still impossible to find a career, not just a felon-friendly job, which in itself is hard to get. Domino's wouldn't even hire me, but the certification and training for a career where I can survive and support my daughter and myself properly. One mistake, and I have to relive it every time I apply for a job and have to check that box, or wait for my background check to come back. It is impossible to have a safe place to live besides the one apartment complex in Las Vegas that legally allows felons in the property, but is an extremely crime-ridden, not family-friendly part of town. It is impossible to support myself and my daughter. I want to support myself. No, I need to be able to support myself. It's not my mother's or the state's responsibility to support me anymore. But what I can do is pay fees and more fees. I've paid $1,400 for supervision fees, $1,200 for mandated counseling fees, books required for the sessions, transportation to and from. I had to take time off work every month, sometimes more than once, to sit and wait for hours to be seen by my parole officer for our scheduled appointment. I did not have one home visit or any guidance from my PO because I wasn't high risk enough yet. My parole was extended for 6 months. And you bet I still had to make all those monthly payments. And my mother was required to pay someone to remove her security cameras, which were only installed because she and my daughter were living alone. This is not right. It's just not acceptable. I received no answers to questions, and I haven't even received my release paperwork going on a year and a half now. So where did all my fees I paid go? And where's the taxpayers' money going? Not to our rehabilitation or reentry like their motto says. The system is broken and we are broken because of it. And our families are broken. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lori Beecher Valenzuela, Lauriebeecher, Valenzuela, Valenzuela. I'm an advocate for Return Strong. My incarcerated loved one was wrongly convicted and is suffering the horrific conditions of imprisonment, along with approximately 11,000 other people. That's a lot of people, and Nevada locks up a higher percentage of its people than any other independent democratic country on earth. Where do they fit all these people? I invite you to see for yourself just how small a prison cell really is. These people are not cockroaches. They are mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, and friends and loved ones. They are human beings that deserve the basic necessities to survive. Yet what these people are fed is neither adequate nor fit for human consumption. You need to visit a prison during breakfast to see what these people are given to eat. I would then invite you to smell and taste it for yourself. These people have the same medical and dental needs as we do, yet they seldom receive timely treatment and medications due to the lack of medical professionals. How can these people be subjected to the excruciating mental, emotional, and physical pain from this neglect? Please visit the infirmary when you visit a prison. The frequent use of solitary confinements and extensive lockdowns provide absolutely no protection or rehabilitation for these people. Please consider visiting a prison and sitting alone with the door locked in a solitary cell.
Society strips these people of their identities, assigns them a number, and slaps them with a derogatory label. Remember that they were and always will be people who deserve to be treated with the same common decency, respect, and dignity given to any other human being. In these 2 minutes, I hope I have given you a glimpse into the hell that has been created for these people. It can only be defined as legalized torture. In closing, please accept my invitation to visit a prison. It is an experience you will never forget. Thank you for your consideration.
Good afternoon. My name is Sandra Valentino, SANDRAVALENTINO, and I have a loved one incarcerated in the Nevada Department of Corrections. Last summer was one of the worst we've ever experienced. Each heat wave was worse than the last. I remember getting letters and phone calls from my loved one describing how unbearable the heat was, how the walls felt like they were radiating heat and the air was thick and unmoving. He told me about people passing out, struggling to breathe, and correctional officers handing out ice that melted within minutes. It wasn't just uncomfortable, it was dangerous. Thank you for giving me the chance to speak today, because this is an issue that can't wait. Our prisons are not equipped to handle the rising temperatures caused by extreme weather and failing infrastructure. Many units have little to no cooling, leaving people inside to suffer through life-threatening conditions. We're talking about dehydration, heat exhaustion, and even heat stroke, conditions that put both incarcerated people and the staff at risk. We have a responsibility to make sure no one is subjected to inhumane and unsafe conditions, no matter their circumstances. Ignoring this problem isn't just cruel, it opens the state up to serious legal and ethical consequences. I urge you to take action now, before temperatures are rising and people are suffering. Fund critical upgrades to install proper air conditioning and ventilation in the facilities that desperately need it. We can't afford not to do it. Set and enforce temperature limits so we don't wait for tragedy before stepping in. And plan for the future by ensuring our prisons are prepared for extreme heat in the years ahead. This isn't just about policy, it's about basic human dignity. We can't turn a blind eye to what's happening inside these walls. I ask you to step up and make changes needed to keep people safe. I am grateful we have Director Zorinda who wants to make changes, but we need your help to succeed. Thank you for your time and making this a priority.
Good afternoon. My name is Ashley Shed, ASHLEY-SHEAD, and I'm here to remind you that solitary confinement, no matter what you call it, is still solitary confinement. It's still suffering, and it's still inhumane. 1,636 days. That's how long someone I care about has been locked away in the hole, not because of his behavior, but for his protection. After repeated warnings that he was in danger, being kept in administrative segregation for 2 years, then sent back to his old unit with a red tag status, NDOC ignored it all, and when the moment came for what should have been a simple escort to visit, they left those who were a threat on the tier for him to be attacked. They created the perfect storm for his assault, and after their failure could have cost his life, their solution was to bury him in a cell alone for over 4 years, 1,636 days, waking up every day to the same 6-by-8 foot box, a box where they sleep, eat, bird bath, and use the bathroom, all within arm's reach. A cage where human contact is a privilege, not a right. Handcuffed and shackled just to take a shower, just to breathe fresh air. Basic human needs are reduced to privileges dangled like rewards. Daily phone calls, a luxury. Time outside, a gamble. Maybe today, maybe next week, maybe not at all because there isn't enough staff. And if they do get to go outside, they could be left there for hours, treated like they don't exist. This isn't about discipline. This is about destruction. Solitary confinement doesn't rehabilitate. It breaks people. It strips them of their humanity, their sanity, their hope. The person I know and love is not the same after years in a box. And here's a fact that should concern every single one of you. 97% of incarcerated individuals will one day be released. When they do, after surviving years of isolation, they are not coming back into society healed. They are coming back broken. And that's on us. If you think this is justified, I invite you. No, I challenge you to visit a prison, step inside a solitary confinement cell and sit there. Close your eyes and imagine 1,636 days. Then tell me this is humane. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Amelia Castillo, Castillo, and I'm here to help you understand what it looks like when NDOC has such a drastic shortage in medical staff as they do at this moment. On January 14, 2025, my loved one informed me that a man in his unit was experiencing a medical emergency. And despite notifying the correctional officer, who immediately radioed for medical attention at 10 a.m., what they call a man down, there was still no response by 2:30. Concerned, my loved one, knowing of Return Strong, asked if I could reach out to get him some help. And I emailed both Return Strong and the family advocate at NDOC requesting assistance. Fortunately, within 45 minutes of Return Strong's intervention, a nurse finally arrived to assess him, and then he spent a week in the infirmary. This incident raises concerns about what happens to those without external advocacy. During the Board of Prison Commissioners meeting on December 19th, the medical care deficiencies within NDOC were discussed, and the medical director, Dr. Kenneth Williams, conveyed a very optimistic message. However, there have been no improvements at High Desert State Prison, and I suspect that to be true statewide. Medical requests go unanswered, obtaining prescription medications is inconsistent, and our loved ones are being ignored. Your prescription ran out after only a few days of a new prescription being filled. I pulled your chart, followed by months of no response. These are unacceptable excuses that our loved ones hear daily. Additionally, individuals on the sick call list wait months, and they may never be seen. Conditions requiring timely treatment, such as hypertension, diabetes, chronic pain, are neglected. And in cases of broken bones, the x-rays are not performed until after the fracture has already improperly healed. And this is leaving our loved ones with limited options for corrective treatment. Those with mental health needs are barely getting medications they need, let alone any real treatment you and I would recognize or have access to. The medical system within NDOC is critically flawed and requires immediate attention. Our loved ones are in your care and custody. You must ensure that medical needs are adequately met, and urgent action is needed to provide or improve their standard of care. Please help our loved ones get the medical care they need. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Morgan Darcy. That's spelled Morgan Darcy. And I'm calling, in fact, that my loved one was actually recently transferred from High Desert State Prison to out of state to the Idaho Maximum Security Institute. Within 3 months of the move, he has noted the following improvements. He is allowed outside on a regular basis. During 2024, he was only allowed outside 4 times in that year. Tier time daily, sometimes twice a day. At High Desert, he was only allowed out every 5 to 7 days for a shower or a phone call, not both. There is not a constant tension between residents and COs. He can talk to his loved ones on a regular basis, options to see loved ones in person or in video, nutritional meals that are fulfilling and they are not left still hungry. They have access to actual real fruit and real vegetables. They are offered better paying jobs. They are offered schooling and programming, more communication and understanding between staff and residents. Knowing that my loved one is due to go in front of the parole board, caseworkers in Idaho are working with him for preparation to the board. Within the first month of being a resident at the Idaho Department of Corrections, he was able to see a dentist, the first time since while being incarcerated. Incarcerated individuals are referred to as residents and not dehumanized as inmates or offenders. There's mental health that is offered and not just a flyer that is handed to the inmates stating illegal substances are bad for you. I'm not saying serving your prison sentence should be something that's enjoyable by any means, but basic human needs should be met. Nutritional needs, medical needs, mental health needs, and basic hygiene needs. If NDOC sent their quote-unquote worst of the worst of inmates out of state, and those inmates are thriving, improving, and having no negative interaction at IDOC, then maybe it's not them. Maybe it's the NDOC. Let me ask you, if IDOC can do better, then what is stopping the NDOC? Thank you.
If you have recently joined us and would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Hi, my name is Pamela Browning, PAMELABROWNING, and I'm a board member with Return Strong. I want to bring to your attention a serious issue affecting our incarcerated loved ones, the lack of resources available to help them prepare for release. My loved one, like so many others, have repeatedly been denied parole, not because of disciplinary issues or lack of effort, but because they cannot access the programming required by the parole board. Over and over, people inside are told, you don't qualify, or we don't offer that program here, despite of actively trying to enroll. They are left with no options, stuck in a system that sets them up for failure. Even for those who do make it home, the challenges don't stop at release. We hear story after story of people leaving prison only to find that the promised reentry support is non-existent. Basic needs like stable housing, employment, and mental health care are incredibly difficult to access. I know someone who was released after decades inside, eager to rebuild their life, only to walk out of parole and probation with his belongings in a garbage bag, with little to no guidance, unable to work due to outdated job training and stigma. Within months, they were struggling to survive, and the system that claimed to prepare them had all but abandoned them while also threatening them with violations in prison for being homeless. We cannot continue to operate this way. If we expect people to succeed, we have to give them the tools to do so. Rehabilitation must be available for every person on the first day of their incarceration. We need increased access to programming across all facilities so no one is denied due to location or arbitrary restrictions. Clear, transparent parole requirements that are realistic and achievable. Stronger reentry support so people coming home aren't left to fend for themselves. This is not just about individual cases, it's about creating a system that actually works. Thank you for your time and consideration.
The public lines are open and working. However, there are no callers to provide further public comment at this time.
Thank you. I don't know if we had an opportunity to go to Las Vegas for public comment. Is there anybody in Las Vegas wishing to join us for public comment? Seeing none, thank you all who joined us for public comment. Members, we will not be meeting tomorrow. We will be back in this room on Monday at 1 p.m. This meeting's adjourned.